is R4. Right where it should be. Our missing planet Camino.
Hello there, and welcome to the Rogue Podcast, a Star Wars show. Today you have myself, your host, Jake Vossen, as well as John McKeever, my co-host. We got a really exciting show for you, a little bit something different. We don't usually do theory videos, but today we decided, you know what, we're going to do a theory based on the last episode of The Bad Batch. John, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a little rough couple episodes, but back to this penultimate episode. I think we're set up for a smacking finale.
I mean, episode 1 of the finale, I loved it. This whole, just going back to Camino, and just, I get blown away by the art and music every time, but just the theme of this episode just had me enthralled the whole time. Seeing Crosshair and just the conversations they had. I mean, this episode wasn't super heavy on action really at all, but just the conversations and the relationships and the emotions that are going on through this whole time was just been a big highlight for me.
Speaking of music and specifically music, did you notice that they had episode 2 music when they were flying into Camino?
When they flew in, it
That
was the same time
like
as when
Obi-Wan flew into Camino. Yeah, that was awesome.
A lot of cool videos have pointed that out, and I just think it was a cool connection. A lot of motifs that they have put through. So I want to jump into it. I don't want this video to be super long, but I had, you had your deepest thoughts when you're in the shower. And I was showering the other day and just think about the episode. This was Friday night or Saturday morning or something. And I was just thinking about, man, what are they going to do? Where are they going with this? And my wife hates me for this. But whenever I watch any show, I am constantly trying to think, what are the writers doing, or notice things that the writers do.
Mm-hmm.
It can be annoying because many times through our episodes of things, or even movies, whatever we do, I'll often just kind of see what the foreshadowing is that they're doing. It's not because I'm some genius or something. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm some super smart guy or anything like that. But it's just I intentionally look for that kind of stuff. I could be so far off on this, but I have seen several things throughout this season and themes that they've pointed to, or specific elements or hints that lead me to believe I think I know where this is going. And like I said, I have no spoilers. This is not a spoiler or anything. I've not got any resources, so don't feel like I'm ruining something for you. This is just my sole opinion.
How much of this would you say came from purely your own head versus other videos of like recaps and such? And
I have seen no theory like this whatsoever. I've seen only videos
Awesome.
I've watched have been recaps, and I haven't seen any like prediction theory, and any of the theories I've seen in the recaps have not touched on something like this. Which I don't think it's some like big crazy conspiracy theory. I think it's probably, at least parts of this I think are going to be correct. So let me get started off, talk about where we're left off and what are the questions that need to be answered. So, one thing that I just want to touch on. All of you need to go watch a video by, you know who Geetsly is?
I do not.
Okay, Geetsly. He made a video about fixing the number one mistake of the Clone Wars. And it's a mistake that I don't know is really as much a mistake as just not the way you would have wanted something to be handled. But I know that we as Star Wars fans and Clone Wars fans grew up loving the clones, and the best part about the Clone Wars is how they personalized the clones and made them all be these individual people that you care about. When one random clone dies, your heart hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if you've only seen them for one episode, like Heavy or something. That's just what the Clone Wars did so well. What a lot of fans and myself has come to agree with a little bit is in those last 4 episodes with the inhibitor chip, it almost seemed like they turned them into droids and took away that personality that they have, and they just became these mindless robots that just did the bidding. And it takes away a little bit of the emotion of, no, they really betrayed the Jedi. It kind of gives them like a get out of jail free card. And it's something that he thinks, like, you look in the real world, which Lucas has often tried to replicate or mirror the real world. People do terrible things, and they don't have mind control chips in their head. And if the clones are people, they can do terrible things. So one thing that he thinks that this episode did really well is to take Crosshair and several of the other clones who are starting to make decisions on their own. I mean, we see Hauser decide, I'm going to betray the Empire. We see Gregor leave the Empire. We see Rex fight against it. We see Wrecker fight against it. So they're still making their own decisions. I think these inhibitor chips are not so much on-off switches that say now you follow every order to the T and your brain is controlled. I think it's more so it was execute this order or this mission.
Yeah.
And once this mission is completed, they still may have some like lingering effects of like susceptible to being less independent. But I think that's more so what it is they're less independent, but not so mind controlled. Because we're starting to see, if you're mind controlled, why are these other clones defecting? Why are they fighting back? Because Hauser simply had a little speech and a bunch of clones left with him. So whether it's not long-term effects, I think it's just simply kill all the Jedi and anyone who tries to keep you from doing that. And outside of that, I think that they're more so still free will beings. And that's a big basis for what my theory is based on. Okay. And we see that from Crosshair. Crosshair removed his own. I don't know if he actually removed it or if he's lying or if it was just burnt out by that
explosion. Yeah.
Right. But he's making these decisions on his own, or at least he's claiming to do so. And I think that's what we're seeing with these clones. I mean, they are truly individual beings who share DNA, much like twins. They have their own personality. And I think that they make their own choices. And that's why we see this variance, right?
And
so
before you get started into that too long, I know this is more of probably a discussion for another video, but with the inhibitor chips, and is that what the biggest mistake that this show fixed?
He just thinks that the inhibitor chips was a cop out to kind of make the clones still look like good guys, even though what they did was awful.
And that's kind of a tough thing to fix, and it looks like a huge contradiction. And the more you talk about it, the more it seems like a contradiction. So, I mean, maybe we can talk about that in another video.
No, I think it's interesting. I mean, and that's why I kind of went into it a little bit. I don't think that it's because when you watch it, it just looks like total mind control. You know, I mean, their brains are taken over and their body just all of a sudden goes. Ugh. Yeah. So maybe that is, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's more so specific mission. Order 66 is this mission. Do this mission. You can't say no to this mission, right? And that's why I think as we go on, they're starting to say no to other things because those other things aren't Order 66, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. It definitely is interesting because we do see Crosshair get that inhibitor chip like turned up where they turned up like turn off his independence, whatever it is. So I don't know. There's a lot of inner workings of it. We'll have to see, but it does look like they're contradicting themselves a little bit. And I don't know how much of an exact science it is. I mean, you're messing with people's brains. Things can get wonky. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is a mind control thing, it definitely looks like long-term effects wear off because we are seeing clones start to defect. We know Gregor, Wolf, Rex all had inhibitor chips removed. And I thought one thing that was cool, Hauser and all those other clones left, but they're still arrested by their clones. So this is not like all clones are starting to change, you know, it's just an individual thing. Okay, let's see what else I got here for me. Oh, it has been something that has been highlighted throughout this show that clones are choosing to leave the Empire, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it with Gregor, we've seen it with Hauser, and it looks like it's happening with Crosshair somewhat, right? So it's definitely something they're building up to. Okay, so that's big. Now, here's where we left off in the last episode. The Bad Batch is cut off from their transport, or at least it appears to be so. It does not look like they're going to be able to get to the platform. At least when they ran out that door, the thing got blasted. Now, it looks like maybe they could get to some secret lab. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But in my opinion, I'm sure you probably feel the same way. It looks like they're in dire need of a rescue, right?
Yes.
Somebody is going to have to come save them. Now, a lot of people have theorized, could it be Fennec Shan? Could it be Boba? Could it be Rex or whoever? Who knows who it is, right? I lean in on the people who they mentioned, a little bit of foreshadowing, when they told Omega to contact Gregor and Rex to come in case there was an issue. We know that she didn't, right? Or at least we don't think she did. We didn't see it on camera. We did not see her contact them.
Yeah.
So to the audience's belief, you should be in a state of there's no hope. Nobody knows they're here. They're going to die, right? But with the foreshadowing that they gave us, we can imagine that either Omega did tell Gregor to get Rex and come, or that Gregor did that on his own. Maybe Gregor called Rex and Rex realizes they're going to Camino and knows what they're doing there. Rex might have intel that knows the Empire is destroying Camino. So my belief is that Gregor and Rex, which we know they get together because of Rebels, we see them together later, that they're going to show up to help the Bad Batch. Okay. Nothing too crazy yet, but here's where it gets a little twisty. All right. Now, What has Rex been doing this whole time, to our belief, to our knowledge?
So I mean, he's been trying to build his own kind of network of
Yeah.
rebels, right?
He's trying to do something. Based off of what we've seen so far, all we know is he's trying to start a resistance against the Empire. We don't know if he formally gets to be a part of the rebellion that we know.
Mm-hmm.
But when we meet him in Rebels, which is 10, 15 years later, when we meet him in Rebels, he has left that effort, right? And he has retired from that and decided it's no longer his war to fight in.
Yep.
So my belief is that he did not actually take part in this specific rebellion. You know what I mean? The rebellion that we know and love, the Rebel Alliance, right?
Yeah.
He tried something else. And my guess is that it failed. So my belief is that during this time, my theory, he has amassed some sort of small group of clones who have rebelled against the Empire, who have left the Empire. Whether he may have rescued Hauser and his clones, whether he may have gotten other commandos, who knows? But I think he's got a ragtag bunch of clones that he's been rallying together, okay? And that when he hears this of the Bad Batch, the guys that he tried to recruit to join his group, right? When he hears that they're in danger in Camino, that's a group of people that you have to bring into your fold. So I think that Rex and Greg are going to show up with, I don't know how many ships, but could they have a cruiser? Could they have a couple starships full of clones to try to come save them? And think about what the writers have done and something that the clones mentioned. How many Corellian freighters, not Corellian freighters, Venator class freighters were on all of Tatooine?
On all of Tatooine?
Or I'm sorry, Camino.
Or Camino, yeah, 3.
3, right? This is pointed out. Things like this are not pointed out unless there is a reason.
Yeah.
Right. So if there was 40 ships, if there was 40 ships there, there'd be no chance that Rex could ever have any kind of chance of getting through that blockade and getting through, right? But if there's 3, there's a fighting chance.
Oh,
now, this could be debunked, and you could just say the reason there's 3 is because everyone's already pulled out. But there are questions that have to be answered here. What happens to all the clones? Because we know that by the time the Empire comes around, that most of them are dead, right? So we know that they're being decommissioned, but it's been vague. How is this happening, right? So my theory is that he comes with Gregor, Rex, and their batch of clones to save them. And a battle, big space battle ensues, and they send a shuttle in, and they're fighting TK troopers this whole episode, right? It's going to be intense, especially since this last episode had very little combat. Firm believe there's going to be a lot of it in this next episode. So I think that this bombardment's going to continue. They might travel to different cities in Camino or underground in these tunnel systems. Whatever happens, they're going to be trying to escape from this. And I think that's going to result in Rampart dying in this fight. But I think that while this fight is going on, we may not see Vader, like a lot of people are theorizing. I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. But in the EU, the expanded universe, and especially in Battlefront 2, you play Battlefront 2, right, John? There's the Rebellion on Camino, where the stormtroopers fight against the clone troopers. And I think we're going to get a version of that. A lot of people have given up on that theory because it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. But I still think it can happen. And I don't think it's going to be huge, just because I think it's going to be a small number of clones who are rebelling. And I think that we're going to see a fleet, probably maybe Tarkin, who was just recently talking to them, just coming in and just laying waste to the clones. I think Rex, Gregor, the Bad Batch escape. And this just total decimation of clones and utter disrespect for clone life is what drives Gregor and Rex to leave this whole thing and just be like, look, we have no chance of fighting this Empire, and I'm not wasting any more clone lives trying to fight it. And that's what causes Rex and Gregor to leave. However, another thing that Crosshair pushed hard for in this episode was what? A purpose, right? He had to have a purpose of serving this Empire and protecting the galaxy is what he claimed. Well, if Crosshair wakes up and just sees the Empire just destroying all clones with reckless abandon, he's now going to hate that Empire.
Yeah.
And who's going to take the mantle that Rex has now left open? And same thing with the Bad Batch. They've been listless, roaming about the galaxy, doing these lame jobs. I'll tell you right now, season 2 of the Bad Batch is not going to be these clones working for freaking Sid. Okay? They're going to have a purpose. And it's going to be to lead, start up the next rebellion. Whether it's working with Ahsoka or whatever it may be, they're going to have a purpose, as Crosshair's led into. So I think that that's going to leave on a cliffhanger where they're just escaping or something. And all these clones that Rex has brought in to save them just get destroyed on Camino. I think it's a pretty solid theory. I don't see a lot of holes in it. I mean, they could obviously go another way, but I think that'd be an awesome way to end the show.
Yeah, I think it pretty much buttons up everything that's been open, but also it doesn't. It fills nicely into Rebels and such, but it doesn't. I think not saying that couldn't happen, but if that did happen, I think it leaves a little bit to be desired. Just because, I mean, we're all expecting a whole heck of a lot from this show.
Well, I think that we could see some other stuff happen. I mean,
yeah,
I don't rule out the possibility.
Bare bone, this is going to happen. Yeah.
I don't rule out the possibility of Ahsoka helping with this because we know that Ahsoka and Rex are in contact at this time. And we know that Gregor knew Ahsoka, or not Gregor, Wolf was in contact with Ahsoka and Rex. Like, I think we'll probably see Wolf with Rex as well. And one thing I worry about with Ahsoka is the Empire doesn't know she's alive.
Yeah.
So if she were to be involved with something like this, she'd have to be super covert or kill everybody with no, marks of Jedi having been there, which I think would be pretty tough. But it could happen. I mean, if this whole city is being destroyed and going to be falling underwater, pretty much anything that happens on the city, as long as she escapes, could be erased with no evidence, So that's kind of like with the whole Loki verse. If you go somewhere where there's a apocalypse, you can do anything there and no one will ever know about it. So Ahsoka could kind of live in that sort of realm. We could see Vader if he were to show up to try to knock this out and just destroy the clones.
That would be awesome.
In Battlefront 2, the 501st is who comes through and wipes it out. So I'm not ruling that out. That's what happens, the expanded universe. But we've seen this show and several others, they retcon a lot of stuff in the EU. So I'm not relying on that, but it could happen. So that's my personal theory of what I think is going to happen. I think that that's a really good way to explain why Rex and the other clones would leave their duty that they feel to protect the galaxy. And I think that would just be hard for them to see all those clones killed by the Empire and to feel like there's no help. Because that rebellion didn't get going for a long time. I mean, by the time we even get to Rebels, which is like 15 years, they had like 4 ships. So I think that would really help explain why Rex does what he does and why he leaves and tells Ahsoka, you're on your own because I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, so, and him seeing all of his brothers essentially just die like that would, I mean, he's been through a lot, but to see it at the hands of maybe even clones.
That's what I'm saying, man.
That are with the Empire, taking out clones that have gone against the Empire, and maybe even having some times where people's helmets get knocked off, and you have to see clones face to face. But is that too much for a kids show, even? Or
think about Umbara, you know, and how hard it was for Rex to see Obi-Wan and Anakin's forces fighting each other. Like, that was just an awful, awful thing to see. And you know how much he values the lives of his brothers. I mean, it's hinted in every single episode with Rex, it seems like, how much he loves his soldiers. And I could just be so heavily into thinking that that's just would drive him to say, I can't take any more loss of other own lives.
Yes. Yeah. And that would fit nicely into Rebels. And I definitely want to see more than what you described, but I can't really see anything different happening from what you described. So I think that is definitely good insight. And especially with pointing out only there being 3 Venators there, for sure they're setting up. That's just like, oh, there's only why would there only be 3 to destroy? Well, so go talk about so the battle you mentioned Battlefront 2 happened. Camino, was that an add-on or was that part of the original campaign?
So in the original campaign, it's the next mission, I believe, after Order 66. Right as you transition from the Clone Wars to the birth of the Empire. It's called the Rebellion of Camino. So I forget what happened, but pretty much as the clones were being decommissioned, very similar to what's happening in this right now. As the clones are being decommissioned, the clones that were stationed on Camino said, no, we're not doing this. And they just started fighting back. And then Vader sent in the 501st, which was his clones. And a few stormtroopers were involved as well. And they went and took over and started fighting and wiped out the clones on Camino. So I think we could get some version of that for sure. Now, I mean, they could totally say that's not what we're doing. We're going a different direction. but there's books written on it and stuff too. So I mean, it's a pretty established story in Star Wars. You could totally retcon it, and they could have nothing happen. But I just think that that's not where this is going. It would have to be in a different city than where they are on Camino, because Topeka City.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that really the only?
No, there's several cities on Camino.
There are.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, because I mean, the fight definitely. I don't think anything really can happen further on that area because of how destroyed it's been.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this episode starts with Rex and his boyos just coming out of hyperspace and starting to lay waste right away. So I think it's going to be pretty intense this next episode. But I don't know. I think it could end really well. Something that this show, I mean, you look at Rebels, Bad Batch, Clone Wars, whatever your gripes may be with either of the shows, they always end on a banger of an episode.
Yeah.
I mean, every time. So we're going to get some intensity. And I think it'll probably have a cliffhanger. It'll have there'll be at least one more character introduced, whether it's Vader or Ahsoka or Boba Fett. One of them will show up in this episode. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think we need one more familiar face, and then I think
to draw in, oh, what do they do with that person next season? You know?
Yeah.
Or maybe if it's even Tarkin in person, I don't know. That'd be a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
So any big quips you have or qualms with the theory?
I don't have any qualms with it. No, I think that's all definitely on the table. Seeing Gregor again. We haven't seen Wolf yet this season, have we?
No, we have not.
I don't think we will at this point. It would maybe be a little bit of a waste to bring in Wolf.
I just think that we're gonna get Rex quitting. And if he doesn't quit, like at the end of this episode, I could very well see him doing it next season because of what happens in this episode. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I definitely think we're going to see the reason why he stops, because he is so motivated right now. I mean, last time we saw him, he was on the hologram, and he's like trying to help them, and he's trying to free different clones. I mean, it looks like he's looking for clones who are defecting, right? And trying to save them. And then he's also being hunted down, like in covert, like I gotta go. And he hears someone or something. So he's very actively trying to fight against this. He's very motivated. So something huge has to happen to sway someone like Rex from trying to fight for the freedom of the galaxy. I think that'd be something that would do it. Because I mean, we're gonna see clones die. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think it'll happen. Something like that. I'm probably off in several places, but I think we'll definitely see something like that. And I think that'd be an epic way to end it.
So do you think this is going to be your standard 22-minute video? I think we might need a little more than that. But
I think we'll need more time. I think it'd probably be like 35 or 40 minutes is my guess. The reason I think it's not going to be like as long as the first episode is because they did part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
If they wouldn't have done part 1 and part 2 and just like did one larger episode, I could see it being a lot longer, but I don't think it will happen. It could. I'd be very happy if it does. Like, who knows? I mean, they have no time restraint. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's true. At any rate, I think we started this show on a good note. I think they would be remiss to end it on any other way.
I don't see it happening. They've gotten the formula down so well on how to end these shows, or at least the seasons, that I think they're going to do a good job with it. And I just don't. I mean, we even as a podcast have decided that we didn't want to waste time on some of these lamer episodes or just filler episodes, just because there was nothing to talk about. And I think that the writers are going to see that. And now, granted, this whole season was written at once, or they didn't write it after episodes had finished. But I think they're going to see that where the strength of this show lied was in the storytelling that progressed them through a core concept. And I think that's where it's going to be taken next year. And I definitely think we're not going to see the listless, just doing missions kind of thing, because that's just not what clones were bred for, is mercenary work. So I absolutely think we'll see them with a purpose, like Crosshair hinted at. I think that purpose is going to be serving some sort of rebellion against the Empire.
Mm-hmm. So is it, well, actually, just to clarify, is that in you're thinking season 2 is going to lead into showing why Rex quit, or he's going to quit this episode?
I think that I doubt that he actually quits this episode. My guess is that the episode ends with them like blasting off into hyperspace after seeing his entire forces just get decimated. Right. Yeah. Like, I think they're all going to die, and they might be the one ship that escapes, right? And I think that Rex is going to we'll be struggling with that all next season, and we'll probably leave during that time. So that's what I think it'll lead into. But yeah, I definitely think he'll quit because of this episode or because of a lack of being able to save enough clones. But I don't think that they're going to leave Camino in this episode until the end. I don't see how there's time to really go to another location. We'll see. All right. Anything else before we head out?
I don't think so. I'm very much looking forward to this, and I'm excited.
Yeah. And I'm just glad that we're looking forward to it, because with some of these episodes we've had, it's been a little disappointing, but we knew that they would end on a high note. I mean, these producers always do. And it's a bit impressive. The episodes that have been good have been really good. And it's not because like Dave Filoni came in and did these episodes by hand. He's left it with a pretty good team, it looks like. And I'm impressed to see the work that they've done, because he was much more heavily involved in Rebels and Clone Wars, and they're still doing a pretty good job. All right. Yeah. This has been the Rogue Podcast Star Wars show. Jake and John, thank you for watching and or listening. Hey, be sure to check out Game Set Live on YouTube. He hasn't posted as much. That's John's YouTube channel. But you post a lot of Star Wars Lego stuff, and I've always find it to be pretty enjoying. A lot of cool builds and reviewing different sets. So if you're into that like we are, as you can clearly see, my collection is growing pretty rapidly. Just finished the Millennium Falcon the other day.
Yes, but many more well on the way, as they say.
But check John out, Game Set Live on YouTube. And as always, may the Force be with you.